Hey guys, this is John, and I've got Missy Cornell with me today. We're going to talk about her journey, her and her husband's journey, Rob, at working with their worship team, kind of being put in a tough situation. And we're going to dig into her story. She's part of our coaching group, Exceptional Every Sunday coaching group, and has been a part of that for a little while now. And would thought that hearing her story is going to help you. Plus, it records her journey. So she could look back on it and be able to see the milestones along the way. So Missy, welcome.
Thanks, John, for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for you. Thanks for being willing to tell your story here.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we're just going to start off pretty simple and just, tell us a little bit about you, your church, you and her husband,
Sure.
the team, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, happy to. So, as John said, my husband and I, we run a worship team from Lafayette, or actually Frankfort, Indiana. We live in Lafayette, Indiana, but we actually have our worship team at Faith Family Church. It's a church I would say we run about 200 people. We've been doing this for probably 2 years now. We're almost at our 3-year mark. So yeah, it's been a learning experience. And we really enjoy it. We have two adult daughters that we enjoy being with, and they're very active in the church with different things, and they help us with the worship team. And so we have been a part of this journey with John for the past year, and it's been really helpful. And we're just excited to kind of share more what that all entailed.
Cool. Give us a breakdown of, because you and Rob are wired a little differently. That's understatement, right?
Very much so.
So kind of a breakdown of what your guys' roles, how you share the leadership.
Okay. So Rob is he's pretty much the head guy. He's the one that he organizes everything as far as with the band, make sure that every Sunday everything is organized. I do more of the administrative work. I communicate with our members as far as in the group, make sure the set lists are ready, just kind of checking up on everybody. Our personalities are polar opposites. He is very taskmaster. He is just, he has a checklist of things that wants to get done. And so he's going to make sure that everything on Thursday and Sunday is done, prepared, and ready to go. And I'm the one that kind of makes sure behind the scenes that all that is done. So
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So you guys make a great team if you don't kill each other, right?
Well, basically, yes. Yeah. You don't want to put us in a canoe, but but we work great together, outside of that. We both would need our own canoes.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So and just for context, you are you guys on staff, paid, volunteer? What's your status?
We are on staff. We are paid staff. And so we're considered part-time with our church. And though, of course, that, part-time is just a word. We all know that probably it goes into a lot more hours than that. But yes.
Yeah. So cool. So let's go back. Talk about some of the, how long have you guys been leading this ministry?
So we started May of 2020, right in the middle of COVID.
Right. Yeah. So let's go back to there. And what are some of the things that, as you came into this ministry, started leading it, what are some of the things you were seeing and experiencing?
Okay, sure. So Rob and I served on the worship team even before we became staff, May of 2020. But the things that we had experienced, we knew that when we were asked to be a part of staff. In fact, the funny story is that Rob and I, at that time, everything was Zoomed because of COVID. And I basically went behind the computer and went like this. No, we are not doing this, because of the things that we were experiencing with the group. There was a lot of toxicity that was happening. Relationships that within the team that were kind of broken. It was very disorganized. Communication, there was a huge communication gap with the team. We'd show up on Thursday at practice, and ready to go, and everything was changed. And it was just a constant frustration upon frustration that was stacked. And of course, when you get to that point, it gets personal. It starts getting personal. And so our pastor, Mark, asked us to take over in May when our other worship leader had stepped down. He had some concerns, and he was running his own business on top of doing this worship team, and it was just becoming too much. So we prayed about it, and basically May 1st, we were on staff and we took it over, and we thought, okay, my husband and I, we've had experiences in other worship teams. We've done some of this stuff outside of doing live music. And we thought, okay, this is going to be a breeze. No, the thing that we found out with our team is that there was a lot of healing that needed to be done. And we knew it wasn't going to be overnight. But we also knew that we needed to gain trust too with this team. So right off the bat, we had a meeting, and we just communicated with the team saying, hey, we want to work with you. We want to try to change some things. And right off the bat, we have to get our communication down, and we have to, we're just asking you guys to trust us. I know that hasn't been something that we've done in the past, because you'd show up at Thursday and why practice when everything's going to change. And we, on the first meeting, said that will not happen. The music that's going to be put out is what we're going to be doing. And so we kind of started with that, with just basically having consistency. And along the way, we had some issues, which growing pains. I mean, you're going to have growing pains. You're going to have the new leadership pains of questioning, because they're still living in the past with the other leadership of, well, this is not how we did it. This is not. And we had to just go, no, guys, that's not how we did. This is how we are going to do it now. Yeah. So that's kind of some of the things that right off the bat that we had to just really just get it cleared up and figured out. So.
Yeah, as you were looking at those issues, we can go into some of them a little bit more, but what was, as you looked at those, you knew, okay, this needs to get fixed. And what were you hoping it would do for Sunday mornings, for the culture of the team, for just the quality of the music and everything? What were you hoping for?
Well, so what we were hoping for with the team is that the mentality that was going into the team was pretty much how you would think of, I hate to say this, like going into high school choir or band. It's an easy A. I just have to show up, play a little bit, and then do what I have to do, and then I'm done. And then what we wanted to do with the culture of this band is to understand that there is so much more that is with a worship team than just show up and play. And so my husband used to, basically say, guys, we're not winging it for Jesus. We're not winging it, and that was the thing that we kept saying, is that, God expects our best, whatever it is. And that includes music. And so one of the things that we really enforced was putting in practice time. You have to have practice. We all required that you had instruments at home. Just because you can play drums doesn't mean you can show up on Thursday and didn't practice during the week. So we laid out very clear expectations on our band. Cool. And communicated with that. And we still struggled with having them buy into that. But I believe as leaders, we needed to do our job with making very clear expectations on what we were doing and why we were doing it. And that it went deeper than just showing up, but that there's an eternal reward here. There's an eternal payoff for this, that there are people showing up, and we have to do our best. This might be the only Jesus they see is through our music.
Yeah. So you mentioned that practice matters, as we were talking beforehand. Practice matters was kind of where you guys started. It was your Kool-Aid into worship team coach and everything. But what what made you find that? And then why, when you started using it, what did you see?
Sure. So as I, got done explaining, is trying to set out that expectation and trying to get them to understand how important practice is. And we really just had hit a wall because we just, I don't understand why they're not getting this. I don't understand how hard this is. So I went seeking. There was Facebook groups and there were other things that I was looking at and we try to implement. And I basically read an article about just the fact of practice matters. I think it was something that you wrote, John. I can't remember how it all went, but I like what you had to say because it all lined up with everything that we were trying to do. And so I showed it to my husband. I read it to him. In fact, I remember doing that. I had him at my phone and I said, you have got to listen to this guy. And I just remember him looking at me and Rob goes, oh my gosh, he gets it. And I'm like, I know. So we started looking into it and you had an invitation for Practice Matters. And so we signed up and we took the class and we got the videos. And it's funny how you can say things 100 times and then you have somebody else who says the same exact thing. And it's like the light bulb goes off. Yep. The light bulb finally goes off. And maybe, I don't know, maybe you were a lot nicer than we were. But they started buying into it. They started getting a clear understanding of where we were at and what we were trying to strive for.
Yep. That's that phenomenon of somebody else's a different voice. The hometown prophet is basically.
Oh my word!
So yes. I couldn't tell my own team anything, even though I created all this stuff. But yeah, it was. It is something where that value of just hearing it from the outside, fresh voice, fresh perspective, and all of a sudden it goes off. And
sure,
yeah, it's great that you guys landed that. So what kind of what have you seen since that Practice Matters? And then what's been your journey since then?
Sure. So the one thing that has really helped is we have made things very simple. And I think that's the thing about a lot of the things that we tried. Everything was so complicated. Everything, well, you must do this, and this. And really, we took what you said and we just made it simple. Guys, practice is personal and rehearsal is relational. Practice time is your time to really get to know the song, to really get to know and ask questions, make it personal so that you understand what's going on. And then when we come together for a rehearsal, it's not just about your time, but you're dealing with 5 other people who have shown up and depending on you. And to see ownership, to see the personal ownership of each member. Now, there's some that it take a little longer than others, but to actually show up and realize it's not all about me. Mm-hmm. My drummer needs to show up because the vocals and the bass player and all that are all depending for that drummer to do their job, and the bass player and the electric guitar player. So we finally got to see the responsibility of your position taken seriously because it all comes together. It all comes together. Oh, and the big thing, the one thing that we saw that was a huge change from the last one before we saw what we had before was everybody taking their cell phones and listening during rehearsal. And we don't have that anymore. We basically said, this is not the time, and when we laid that out, I think they saw, and because of our consistency, they bought into that.
Yeah.
And now it's not even, we have people coming in now and going, I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't think I'm a 4 yet, but I'm a pretty close 4. But to know that they're buying into that system and we're communicating with us with that means the world to us.
Yeah. Yeah. And those of you guys who are kind of hearing this and aren't familiar with Practice Matters, it's a course we have to train your team on how much to practice, what to practice, when to practice. and then some advanced things like playing with the click and memorizing. But we have a module in there. It's called How Prepared is Prepared. And in there is this thing called practice numbers, where essentially we, made something tangible, because you just tell your team, be prepared. It's really hard. And so we actually have a number system that says, okay, one, I'm just learning it. Two, I'm still fumbling around. Three, I can do it, but it's on the chart, and then so on.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so what that did is that gave your team a common language, correct?
It did. It was something that we were on the common plane of, okay, we know where we're at. We understand now where we're at and where we are heading. And that really helped. And I think what also happened, Sunday, we want to come and we want to put our best foot forward, but we also, we don't want to just do good music. We want to worship. We want to invite the congregation into worship. And if we're going into this unsure or not knowing the communication, then we're not putting our best foot forward. And so if we can keep building on this during rehearsal, and that was the other thing too, is using proper language. The only time we use practice is because it's at home. Rehearsal is done at church. Sound check, we should already know what we're doing and have that done for Sunday. And so that really, I think that just kind of gave our team a strong foundation to keep building.
Nice.
Keep building.
You said some huge things in there. One, you made things simple, and part of that's making the standards simple and clear. Like, here's how we're going to do it. You made changes, but you were clear on the changes, and you were consistent. You talked about consistency there. You built in this new common language, and language shapes culture. It's just a matter of fact. And it's if we get everyone talking the same language, using the same words, believing they mean the same things, it's powerful.
Absolutely.
And then you said something that there at the end there, we want to invite people into worship, and that's really giving them a bigger cause than, hey, we're just playing music. We're just showing up. But before you said they were, looking at the easy A, basically they can come in, and I wrote, they were okay being okay.
Yes.
And now they have something bigger to shoot for. Hey, we're accompanying worship. So,
yes. Yeah.
So cool. So talk about your journey, from there into where you're at now in the coaching group, and talk about some of the things that led you to that even.
Sure. So since that time, and I would say that probably, that's been probably about a year. So that was May 2020 that we took the position of being staff. And I would say probably within a year, we implemented this. We put this into practice. I just remember that in December, December is crazy town. We all know that. Mm-hmm. And when we would have multiple practices, when we would have to be Christmas time is when we're throwing in new music, and it's just a big ball of stress. And to see all the things that we've tried to implement and see it really put into action when it was go time was fantastic, because we were all kind of going the same way. And that was a huge point. Now, since that time, we've had changes of band members, but what happened was it didn't shake us up. We just kept going. And we just and what happened is that we ended up having influencers in our team that influence that person to come alongside and help them understand, hey, this is what we're doing. This is, this is what works. We've bought on it, join the bandwagon basically. And that was really cool to see that we have influencers and leaders. We've created leaders. We now feel like we can leave if we have to, and we know it's that the band is in good hands. And so that was a really cool thing to be able to have all these things in place and see 2 or 3 people rise up as leaders. as influencers, and they all work together to make this thing work, even when we're not there.
Yeah.
And that's huge.
All in less than 2 years. I mean, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Doing some great work there.
So we still, I don't want to put out this like whole, butterflies. We still have glitches. Trust me. We still have glitches. We still have to go, okay, guys, we're, because things happen. It's just the way it is. So we're pretty happy about that. I think sometimes I get into the mode of forgetting how far we have come and focus on the little things that we still have to work on and get really frustrated. But looking how far we have come just by implementing just simple things and buying into it. So we did start something, I believe it was in November, where one of the things that Rob and I talked about was just really getting to know our team too. Our team chemistry, knowing more about our team personally. Like for instance, right now I have 2 people who are full-time workers and work 40, 50-hour weeks. One of them is trying to get a degree. We've got a couple of teachers. I mean, we just have a plethora of people who have other things that they're doing. And so taking a look at what we have as a team, Rob and we found out that we needed to give them more tools to be prepared. And so what we started implementing was a lot of what you were talking about in your book called Song Cycle. And so we started looking at that book and really starting to give more music ahead of time to prepare our team. So we usually give them a list of songs. I'd say anywhere, I don't know, 12 to 15. Not that we do all of those songs, but just you have a month and you come up with your own practice at home schedule. It used to be that we'd give them the songs and then everything would be released the Thursday before the practice next Thursday. And what we found out is life gets in the way, school gets in the way, jobs get in the way, and they just don't have the time they can put into it. So now giving them a month ahead of time, they come up with their own at-home schedule. They get familiar with what we might be doing for that month. They know ahead of time of baptisms or baby dedications or special things that we might be implementing. So nothing is a surprise on Sunday morning anymore.
Nice.
And so we are, preparation is huge, is a huge tool. And when it's used in the right way, just the muscle that you can give the team is so obvious. And and I think appreciated. I think it's appreciated that they see that we're hearing them, that we're paying attention to them as team members and wanting to help.
Yeah. Yeah. The fact that, we could tell our team and even train our team to practice enough, but then as leaders, we have to do what we need to do to, get the songs out ahead of time, not, pelt them with, 100 new songs every month or whatever.
Right.
So that's big. So what's, when did you came into the coaching group when? What month was that?
I want to say November 2021.
Yeah. So what kind of things were you, this was in the midst of that time of getting to know your team. What are some of the other things that kind of made you go, oh yeah, we need to step up the game and get some coaching or, and what drew you to it?
So the thing that drew me to it, attending some of the things that you had invited us to, the practice matters. And there was other things that we did I can't remember it right offhand, but the planning for the year and just listening to that and just hearing and, coming together with other worship leaders and seeing and hearing other ideas we've been doing worship as far as being a worship team for years and years, but we've never been leaders. And that's a whole other ballgame. That's a whole other ballgame. And I felt like, we needed training. In my own personal life, I run a business and I love going to conferences and I love being able to be a part of roundtables because you learn from other people's experiences. And so after attending the year planning, and I can't remember what it was again, what it's called, but I saw the value, not just in the planning, but just being able to collaborate with other people and ideas and seeing things that they're doing that maybe we need to start implementing, or they tried it, didn't work. So, just kind of knowing what they went through. So, we joined because we wanted the community and support of other worship leaders and being able to really just learn just how to do this and things that maybe holes that we still need to fill as a worship leader.
Cool. So what kind of things, since you've gotten in the group, have you worked on and implemented? I mean, I know we had Christmas kind of in the middle of after you come in.
Right.
Like you said, crazy town, but yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit about some of what you've been working on and moving towards.
So one of the first things is that we have had some new members show interest, wanting to join. And so instead of just going, hey, come on in, the thing that we've learned is that, everybody can play an instrument, but how well can you? Playing with a band is so much more different than just playing in your bedroom. It just really is. And so we've taken the time to be, to go through and learn how to properly evaluate them, figure out, is there a place for you, or, what do we need to do to encourage you, because they show promise, but they need a little more work. So as far as new members, and I'm just excited that we're attracting, I think excellence attracts excellence. And I think that people want to be a part of something. And I think that's complementary to showing that we're not the blow off class. We take what we do seriously, and people like that. I think that it has, we've implemented the planning for the year and how that has helped us, especially with Planning Center and getting them to block off times, being able to sit down and say, even if it's not going to happen, please just block off time. If you think you want to be away for your anniversary, just let me know. We can always change it later, but just let us have a plan so that we know to at least prepare for that. So that has helped. Meeting with our pastors and going through events that they have and going, when do you think that you want to do this? When can we implement this? What are some things that you would like to see the worship team do more as far as going out in public and sharing that with our team? So those are things that we have learned. I mean, and it just comes down to this: communication. We have just learned just to know how to communicate and what we need to communicate to the staff and to our band, and making sure that they, that we have that openness of let us know what's going on. Let us know what you have plans for, because that helps us too. The other things, if I can add this, one of the things that we added was a whiteboard session. And that was, I believe that is in one of our sessions that we did with the Exceptional Sunday, is having a whiteboard session to where they are a part of the meeting and sharing goals and things that they would like for the band or for themselves. Because I think that helps with taking ownership also, and, we're not going to take everything. Our drummer wants something that goes up and turns in we just don't have the budget for that. But we're listening.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just going, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. We want some input. And I think that was a point in our group that they really appreciated, that we wanted to hear from them.
Yeah. Yeah. You said some great things here as far as just, it's like you're building on things. You focused on that practice piece, and then it's like, oh yeah, we as leaders, we need to do more to make sure that we can support them to practice. And then we need to make sure they feel heard. And even to the point where, hey, we're going to create some new expectations and standards here, rather than us just plop that in front of them, invite them into the conversation. And you're not in a, it's not going to be a consensus building thing where everyone has to agree on everything, but they felt heard. They felt like, hey, we're part of this.
Absolutely.
And yeah. So fantastic.
Well, and they have to, in some way, when they're doing that, hold themselves to the standard that they put out there.
Yeah.
I mean, you came up with the idea of making sure that we all, commit. Well, now let's stand by that.
It's your idea, buddy.
Right.
So, well, cool. So, and you mentioned, you've got some more things to do. And one of the reasons why we do case studies with this group, and I've talked to you about this, Missy, is that we can, just chronicle your chapters along the way. And so this isn't, I don't want anyone listening to this going, oh, Missy's arrived because, and she did all this in 2 years or a year and a half or whatever. You could probably tell us, Missy, a whole bunch of stuff that's still lacking or missing or needs work. And, but it's a process. And so I'd love to hear about, what are you focusing on now? What are you looking at building next? Where are you going from here?
Okay. So one of the biggest things I think that I want to make sure that I put out there is, like what you said, yes, a lot has happened in 2 years, but I think a lot of that is we were really blessed with having members that were open to that. And I think that, I believe that sometimes people are in worship teams and they're not there maybe for the right reason. And so sometimes it kind of, when you put out those expectations, sometimes they're like, you know what, I'm not all in this. It's time, I think I'm going to step down. And, those are the conversations that you have and you find out, and they might come back. I don't know. We had a couple people decide to come back after they stepped down. And I think a lot of it was just that they knew that we weren't just here today, gone tomorrow. We were, so that's one of the things. And I think that seeing changes happen and buy-in, we continue, our language hasn't changed. It's still, even 2 years later, the practice, practice is personal, rehearsal is relational. We keep beating that in their heads because we don't want them to forget, hey, just because we are moving and we're moving onward, the language hasn't changed. Mm-hmm. I think as leaders, I think that what we need to focus now on is continue moving forward, such as still developing the song cycle. We're only 2 months into it and trying to see what works and what doesn't work. But right now it's going well, but we're still in the tweaking stages. So we're still trying to figure out what works for us. But like I said, we're 2-3 months in and it's going well. But I think that Rob and I can dream really big of things we want, but we still have to do it in bite-sized pieces. Mm-hmm. And I think the thing that we have to continually do as leaders and encourage the team is that, little is much when God is in it. That's an old Southern gospel song. And I keep telling our team, the little victories matter. The little victories matter. And I think that's the thing right now, is that it's not all about the big things, the big changes, but celebrating the small things too, because the small things lead into the big things. Right now we've got a new media person. We're going to be adding a video tech person, and we're taken on a couple of new sound people. If COVID has taught us anything, is to be prepared, because you just never know. And so we've created what we call utility people, people who can be, one Sunday they could be guitar players, but if the sound person's sick, man, they can go right up and they can run sound for us. And so that's kind of where we're at right now, is creating utility players. You have that, my daughter used to play, or she does still, but some of the most valued people on the team are utility players. You can put them anywhere.
Yep.
And so so that's kind of what we're focusing on now. And believe it or not, I know we're in March right now, but we're already looking at planning for Christmas.
Nice.
We're already, and that was a change, because usually it was October that we wouldn't, and Christmas is huge. It should take a lot more than just a couple months to plan. And so I think that's one of the things that we're working on right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's where we're kind of at right now.
Cool. Yeah. I love that you're thinking ahead. I mean, Christmas, you may still spend 2 months total on planning it, but you've spread it out so you're not killing yourself, and you're giving, you're planning one stage, it has time to breathe, you come back again another month or two later, you're able to take it that next level. But that's good.
Yeah.
You said something else too that's huge, is you just talked about that little is much when God is in it, and just those little changes. And I think we've talked about that before too. I take it from the book called Atomic Habits, the idea of 1% changes. Yeah. And I don't know if it's original with him or not, but just that idea of, you made some big 20, 30%, 40% changes of the practice. And then, some of the other things you implemented, but now and not to say there aren't some other, big changes or whatever, but most of those are going to come through just those little tiny tweaks of over and over and doing that. And that's huge. And that's where, being a part of the group is so nice, because we can keep revisiting that and saying, okay, what, and keep celebrating those small wins, because when you're on your own, it's like, okay, no one really appreciates that we just made this little 1% increment, but these other worship leaders in the group are going to selbrate it big time, because they know what that means. And,
the one thing I want to put in this too, is that how I think it is amazing to have other worship leaders in this group that you're together, and know that we're all praying for each other. We all have the same goals. We want to glorify the Lord through what he's using us for, and through our team. And just knowing that we can come and say, we had a rotten Sunday and we're all coming together and encouraging. And we come in with ideas and saying, hey, give me some ideas, give me, or help me understand this issue, so I know how to. And I think that is one of the, we're learning all these things, and I love that. But man, that community is amazing. It is amazing. So I really appreciate that.
That's great. Cause it's funny. I was just talking to another worship leader, and I was just saying how much I'm surprised the community part of this coaching group has been what it is. It's cause it's funny, cause I'm not if it was Ian running it, or he's like Mr. Relationship guy, and I'm like Mr. Let's train, let's go, let's do stuff. But I think it's a testament to you guys too, the people that are in it, because I've had some people where I've interviewed them, and I just went, I'm putting a note on their record that I don't think they'd be a good fit in here. And not that they aren't decent people or whatever, but it's like this group there's something to it. And, and everyone's very different. Not everyone's best friends or anything, but there's a camaraderie there that's really fun to see and to watch. And I feel like sometimes I'm just along for the ride with you guys. So
well, and I have to appreciate what you're doing there, because leadership reflects leadership. If you're caring that much about what you're putting into this, that helps us really put in what we're doing. We do the same thing. There are just some people who are just, if you have something going on in your ministry and there's just somebody who is, I want to rock out, blah, they're probably not going to be, they're not going to get it. Maybe they will, but right now you're just not there yet. Let's just keep talking, or let me just see. So I have to appreciate that, the leadership reflects leadership. And I appreciate that about you.
Yeah. Thanks for saying that. So, yeah. So I'm really looking forward to this next chapter of what you're heading into. And when we can jump on and talk again and record this next chapter, and maybe there'll be some big things, but I think it's going to be a lot of those 1% that add up to big leaps and strides.
Absolutely.
If you were to talk to somebody, who would you recommend this to, the Exceptional Every Sunday coaching group?
Oh, wow. Well, everybody. Let me just put up everybody. So, but let me, the one thing that I have a couple of people that are within my area that are worship leaders, and they feel very alone. They feel like they have to figure things out on themselves. And I've just told them, like, look, you need to know that you're not. You need to know that your struggles are shared by a lot of people around the US, around the world, really. There are worship leaders all around the world. But, and I just, I really encourage, I think that, new worship leaders, I think, if you're just coming out of college and you're taking on a new church, man, get that foundation done right the first time. And get it implemented, understand, know why you do what you do. And and I think, if you've been under a lot of other worship leaders, they all have their own ways of doing it. But I'm reminded by something that I will not forget that you said in an email. Do you want to leave all these papers and everything as your legacy, or do you want to build leaders? And I think that is one of the things that really impacted me. And I think that whether you're a new worship leader that is just coming out of college, or you're like us, I'm 48 years old, my husband's 54, and this is our first gig. This is our first, and I say gig, but our first opportunity to be leaders. And, we've seen it and done a lot, but to have this foundation has been, it's been so helpful. Good. So helpful. So honestly, I just think if you're a worship leader, this is just one of those things that even if you think you have the best worship group and you've got things figured out, man, you could always be learning. You could always be learning.
That's good. Well, Missy, thanks so much. And maybe next time we coax Rob on here too. I don't know how that would go with both of you guys on there, but it'll be fun regardless. But thank you so much. And absolutely. I just appreciate your time and sharing your story with us.
Absolutely.